Warm greetings from the High 10. It is Everyday Shenanigans on this Saturday, May 30th, 2020. I'd like to bring you said information pertaining to Mr. George Floyd. And this information is brought to you by the New York Post, updated on May 28th. Here's everything we know about the death of George Floyd. Verification for the storyline is the New York Post. There is said video inside of this article and other links to said information pertaining to this storyline. It was a routine police call for a run-of-the-mill crime, someone passing a bogus $20 bill at a deli. But the ensuing death of unarmed black man George Floyd while in the custody of Minneapolis cops and the resulting riots have once again forced the divided nation into a bitter self-reckoning. The cops involved were axed, and President Trump himself has pledged an expedient investigation by federal law enforcement, but that has done little to quell searing outrage that's lit up social media, left buildings at Ground Zero in Minneapolis, torched and necessitated the Minnesota National Guard. It all started when restaurant bouncer and aspiring commercial driver Floyd, 46, tried to buy groceries. Floyd, a Houston native who had previous scrapes with the law and moved to the Twin Cities to start fresh about 6 years ago, went to the Cup Foods on Chicago Avenue South around 8 p.m. for the food run. That's around the time cops got a call from a store clerk that there was a forgery in progress. Someone was trying to pay for groceries with a counterfeit $20 bill, a non-violent offense. Surveillance footage from a nearby restaurant shows police arriving shortly after 8 p.m. and approaching a black minivan where Floyd is sitting with two other people. Two officers walk up to the vehicle, its passenger door already open, and one shines a flashlight inside. The second officer approaches Floyd and tells him to get out of the vehicle, prompting a brief struggle before Floyd exits the vehicle. Meanwhile, the passenger and a woman sitting in the back seat are seen getting out of the minivan. Moments later, Floyd is seen, hands cuffed behind his back, being led to the side of a building by two cops. Floyd appears to be speaking to the officers but does not appear to resist. A second officer vehicle arrives as Floyd is escorted across the street to a waiting patrol car. One surveillance video from across the street shows him stumbling and falling as the two officers lead him to the waiting squad car, according to the footage obtained by KMSP-TV. The video is heavily redacted and largely muted, but it appears the two individuals being questioned were the man and the woman who were in the van with Floyd. What happens next is still uncertain, but the next time Floyd is seen on the video is a viral clip shot by bystander Darnella Frazier, which shows Floyd already pinned down by Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin, a white cop seen pressing his knee into the back of Floyd's neck while he lies face down in handcuffs. Chauvin had been the subject of 10 prior conduct complaints over his 19 years on the force, but had never faced disciplinary action. In the span of nearly 4 minutes, Floyd can be heard telling police at least a dozen times that he can't breathe and asking Chauvin to take his knee off his neck, as bystanders, including the grocery clerk who initially called 911, pled with the officers to let Floyd get up. "Please, I can't breathe," he said. "Get up, get in the car," one of the cops is heard saying while Floyd remains pinned down by Chauvin. "I will, I can't move," Floyd responds. He then stops moving altogether. Police called EMTs around 8:30, and they arrived in 6 minutes to find an unconscious and unresponsive Floyd, according to Hennepin County Healthcare EMS Chief Marty Shearer. Paramedics and police eventually flipped Floyd over while he was still cuffed, placed him on a gurney and into the ambulance, where a responder released his hands. Their decision to load and go rather than triage Floyd on the spot was likely based on their race against time, Shearer said, adding that responders were likely unaware of how severe the situation had become. Despite medical officials reportedly spending an hour trying to revive Floyd, he was pronounced dead at a local hospital at 9:25 p.m. I just want to make sure I let you all know that. Medical officials reportedly spending an hour trying to revive Floyd. Police initially claimed that he suffered a medical episode while struggling with officers, but Frazier's video soon put the lie to that claim. "They killed him right in front of Cup Foods over South on 38th in Chicago," the 17-year-old later said on Facebook. No type of sympathy. The following day, Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey, visibly enraged by footage of the incident, announced at a press conference with Police Chief Madaria Arredondo that all 4 officers involved had been fired. 4 responding MPD officers involved in the death of George Floyd have been terminated, Fry said on Twitter. This is the right call. In a separate tweet Tuesday, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz called the incident sickening. The lack of humanity in this disturbing video is sickening, Walz wrote. We will get answers and seek justice. Fry lashed out again Wednesday, calling on Hennepin County Attorney Mike Freeman to arrest Chauvin, something a spokesman said Freeman's office is discussing. Meanwhile, the FBI announced that it would investigate the incident in a joint probe with state authorities, and Trump on Wednesday pledged that the feds would conduct an expedited investigation. At my request, the FBI and the Department of Justice are already well into the investigation, he tweeted. On Thursday, Fry followed up by arguing that Floyd would be alive today if he were white. Angry protesters nonetheless took to the streets of Minneapolis, targeting local stores and a police precinct in the city. Outrage over the case spilled over into the sports world, with the NBA stars LeBron James and Steph Curry taking to social media to express anger over Floyd's death. James posted side-by-side images on Instagram of Chauvin pinning Floyd and former NFL quarterback Colin Kaepernick kneeling during the national anthem before San Francisco's 49ers game, his high-profile protest of police brutality against Black Americans. This is why, the post said in explaining Cap's protest. Former NBA star Stephen Jackson, a friend of Floyd's, thanks to their striking physical similarity, said he was devastated by his death. I jumped up, screamed, scared my daughter, almost broke my hand punching stuff because I was so mad, the 42-year-old former Net told NBC's Today. It just destroyed me, and I haven't been the same since I seen it. New York Governor Andrew Cuomo also chimed in during his daily coronavirus press conference Thursday, calling Floyd's death frightening. If I was a prosecutor, I would look at that case from the first moment, said Cuomo, a former state attorney general and Manhattan prosecutor. There is a criminal case there. Floyd's brother, Philonise Floyd, provided more personal commentary on the case on CNN Thursday when asked about the continuing protests. I want everyone to be peaceful right now, but people are torn and hurt because they're tired of seeing Black men die constantly over and over again, he said. And I understand why and see why a lot of people doing a lot of different things around the world. I don't want them to lash out like this, he added, but I can't stop people right now because they have pain. They have the same pain I feel. I want everything to be peaceful, but I can't make everybody be peaceful. That is the said information by the New York Post, updated on May 28th. And I would like to give you some stats pertaining to police brutality against African American people, and it reads as follows. As you know, we were just coming out of this Ahmaud Arbery scenario a few weeks ago, and the joining of the dismantling of DAs in the case. 3 DAs have been appointed. We have a third one who has taken on the case to bring justice to this case against Mr. Ahmaud Arbery, of civilians taking the law into their own hands, a father and son duo, the McMichaels. Then we have this scenario in Minneapolis of Mr. George Floyd by Minneapolis police officer killing him. Yeah, I said that. He killed him. Mr. Chauvin killed George Floyd. 104 armed Black people killed in 2015 by police. 36% unarmed killed by police in 2015, despite we, African American people, make up 13% of the U.S. population. Blacks are killed 5 times more at more time of a rate than unarmed white people. Only 13 of 104 cases in 2015 resulted in officers charged in the crime. 13 of 104 cases of police killing African American people were charged. 4 led in mistrials or charges dropped of the officers. 4 ended up going to trial. The 5th case, Walter Scott, resulted in the officer pleading guilty. And of those said people, that was Matthew Ajibade, Eric Harris, and Patterson Brown Jr. and William Chapman. Okay. No more. I can't even read this. Okay. My handwriting is horrible. No more than 4 years did these officers get in prison for their said murders of African American people. 1 or 2 officers in the Ajibade case got jail time. 1 or 2 officers got jail time. 1 year in jail, and he only served that time on the weekends. In the Patterson Brown case, that officer received 3 months in jail. The deputy in the Deputy Bates in the Eric Harris case got 4 years. In the William Chapman case, that officer got 2.5 years. And with Walter Scott case, where the officer has pled guilty to that said case, he is currently awaiting a sentence in that death of Walter Scott. So as you see, stats show in 2015, 104 unarmed black people were murdered by police officers. 36% were unarmed in 2015, killed by cops. Considering we only make up 13% of the population in the U.S., so you do the math on that. And we as black people are killed 5 times greater than a white person in America. What I have to say today is that I'm sick of the bullshit myself. I'm sick of white people jumping in, taking the law into their own hands. I'm sick of cops being readily using excessive force, be it by hand, be it by a gun. When you watch the said video of Mr. Floyd, you will see that he is on the ground. And allegedly this video runs 8 minutes long. If you Google being suffocated and or drowning, it takes about 4 minutes to be suffocated to death. So you do the math. It does not take that long to kill a person by suffocation and or by drowning. It is said that drowning is worse on the body than to actually be suffocated. I would know. I've had the luxury of not being a participant in either, and I didn't know that the dead could speak to tell us which one was worse, but I'm just giving you a synopsis of what happens. Suffocating and or drowning, they're deemed very painful deaths. Google it yourself. There's an epidemic in this country of racism, racial profiling, and it has been going on since day one because you see, racism is here. It's not going anywhere. It's not going to stop. That video is heinous. It is sad that a black man, whether he was Chinese, white, whatever, but today he was a black man, lost his life for a counterfeit $20 bill. Now, did he know that money was counterfeit? I don't know. I don't really care because it's obsolete. It doesn't make any sense. It is shameful that a person would lose their life over a $20 counterfeit bill. It wouldn't matter if he stole something of value out of the store at $20. It did not deem him being murdered like that. And it wouldn't matter if it was chokehold and knee to the neck, if he was shot. You said he resisted arrest, which is so ever. The video shows that he was trying to exit out of that driver's seat of that car, and you could see some type of struggle then. So the intent was there from the jump. 2 passengers are talked to, interrogated. No problem with them. He was escorted over to the side of the wall, to the curb, which is so ever. No problem. So how do you go from getting out of the car, pulled out, then escorted across the street to another vehicle to end up dead, and a video going viral around the world of your death over $20? $20 counterfeit bill. How do you end up dead from that? I'll wait. It looks intentional. You have several people watching, bystanders, the store clerk who initially made the call of the counterfeit money. The fact that when you check the $20 bill, all you had to do was check it. How about just checking the bill and saying, hey, this is counterfeit. Don't come back in our store. It didn't even have to lead to the police being called. But you called the police anyway over a $20 counterfeit bill. You could have easily let that situation die down and say, we're not even getting ready to go make this a big deal. You could have easily just said, don't come back in our store. Could have taken this picture and said, we have your picture on file as passing counterfeit money, whether you knew it was counterfeit or not. Don't come back in our store. How is it two other people that are in the car are unscathed by police, but Mr. George is scuffling, getting out, scuffling at one point staggering on the curb. I don't know if he was sick or under the influence of something. I don't know. Maybe he was having a medical issue. Because at one point you see him being escorted by the officers, handcuffed. He stumbled. I don't know if he missed his step on the curb or what, but the point still remains. A black man died during police custody over $20, a $20 counterfeit bill. The fact that other officers are telling him to get up, this is where I'm really pissed off. You're telling him to get up when you saw that the other officer had his knee to his neck. How was he to get up? And he told you he couldn't get up because of the man's knee in his neck, the officer's knee, and yet you still keep saying it, taunting him. So yeah, your ass is guilty too. The one who yelled that out, get up, get up, get up, you're guilty. The little short, sawed-off, oriental, bald-headed ass cop, yeah, I'm talking about you, Mr. 5-foot giant. You kept standing in front of Mr. Floyd because you didn't want that girl filming that video, which showed me you are also complicit to the crime as well. And the fact that you want to get jiggy with the bystanders talking junk shows me your intent as well. What do you have to say to those bystanders? As the young lady told you, I have the freedom of speech and exercise my right to say whatever the hell I want to say. And you were about to get up, you were trying to get in their face, so you was trying to enact more violence that evening in Minneapolis. Because you are also complicit for blocking the view of the said crime, not aiding the man down to say, okay, man, that's enough. Let's let him get up. When you saw that he was in distress, you stood idly by with your back to the victim on the ground and the officer's knee to his neck. Then you were making snide remarks to the public. You were down with the shit too. And the officer who's yelling, get up, you with the shit too. And you a foul piece of, you know what? Yeah, I said it. Because you knew he couldn't get up. And I want to know, why is it he ends up being on the ground instead of getting in the back of the patrol car? Because that was the purpose of you pulling him out of his vehicle, taking him to the curb or the wall to talk to him. So how do you go from that to this, getting out of a car, going over here, crossing the street, to only be on the ground and dying and it being filmed? And he's telling you he is in distress. He can't breathe. Yet you still hold your knee to him. And you enjoyed it, Mr. Chauvin. And even one of the MSNBC commentators said last night, it was as if he was enjoying killing that man. He knew what he was doing. And I concur. And I thought the same before that reporter said that. You knew that what you were doing would kill him. And you enjoyed the knee to the neck. And I want to say something about Mr. Ice Cube. I understand your pain, not wanting to do your interview this week on Good Morning America. And like you said, what do we have to talk about? I'm not in the mood to talk. And that post you put up on the Twitter account of Mr. Chauvin with the red hat saying, make whites great again. That's who he is. That's who Mr. Chauvin is. He's a white racist cop. He's a white racist honky. That's what he is, and I said it, and I don't give a damn who don't like it. And that's how I feel about it. Racism is here. It's not going anywhere. And whether we protest as civilians, whether we march, yell, loot, don't loot, burn a building down, whichsoever, doesn't really matter, because you don't hear us. You don't know our pain. You don't know what it's like to be an African American in this country. You have no idea. You will never know what it's like. And the fact that this Attorney General, the American Attorney General, I think his name is Barr, if I'm not mistaken, what the hell are you talking about? Some left-wing groups, extremist people are involved. It doesn't have anything to do with Mr. George Floyd's death. Other people are getting involved in exciting riots and protests. You don't know what the hell is going on in Minneapolis, San Diego, Atlanta, Louisville. You don't know what's going on because you're sitting in your cushy home up there in D.C., outside D.C., eating a bag of Hershey bars, getting fatter by the moment, talking junk like that blockhead you praising and idolizing. Yeah, your daddy, Mr. Trump. You don't even know what the hell you talking about. It doesn't matter if people came from London and wanted to protest. That's their business. You don't have any proof of any left-wing groups, extremist groups. People are people. And who they identify with, rally with, is their damn business. So speak on what you know. As far as Mr. Trump's tweets, the shooting scenario, well, why would that shock anybody? You see, don't you find it interesting that it's okay to shoot people protesting a black man being murdered by the police, murdered by a white father and son duo down in Georgia? It's okay to say, shoot those protesters because these black folks are being gunned down, murdered for no damn reason by the police and civilians. But when people run around with MAGA hats at Trump rallies and your supporters were violent to African American and other white participants, you didn't tell nobody to shoot. Did you say pull the guns out then? Did you want somebody shooting your Republican supporters? See, I think it's interesting how white people love to tell others when to exact violence when people decide to protest. And it so happens it becomes a violent situation with the protesting, then shoot them, get your guns. But when Republicans rally for Mr. Trump or any other Republican political running, and people start yelling and hollering and screaming, you don't say nothing about people wanting to shoot the Republicans rallying. You don't want them getting shot. So why is it okay for when black and whites rally in the protest of black Americans being gunned down by the police and civilians, then now you want other civilians to jump in and start shooting protesters? That's foul and rank, but it shows this is who you are and this is how some of you white people think in this country. You see, America is a dirty bitch. She's been dirty from the jump because you white Europeans came here and you stole the land from the Indians. You pushed them out and you brought the black man and woman here to work for you and enslave them, beat them, rape the women, and use them to your advantage to become wealthy American citizens. But you are not Americans. You just came here and put the stamp on a land that was not yours. And now, hundreds of years later, you are reaping what you started. And whether you are white, black, Jew, Arab, and you think it's okay to just say, that was the past, it can't be the past, because why am I talking about a black man being murdered in the street by a police officer? Or a black guy jogging and being murdered by a son and father on assumption. A lot of you are racist. A lot of you white people, Jews, all of you, you're racist and you do not want to own your part, and you want to make excuses for things, to walk around spewing venom at African American people, Mexicans, whomever. And you are the type that think it's okay to go get guns and gun people down and stalk people for things you don't know anything about and things that's not any of your damn business. It needs to stop. You don't like black people, Chinese, Arab, whatever. That's your business. Stay in your lane. Cops, doctors, lawyers, engineers, presidents, all the same. Learn to keep your mouth closed. Your opinion isn't warranted and it's not valued. It's only valued by somebody who's sitting insecure, who doesn't like him or herself and wants to spew venom against the black man, the black woman. You see, you created this problem, white America, and you are now dealing with the fallout from your forefathers, your foremothers. And I don't see racism leaving, because there are people who are just not going to like black people or other nationalities, and that is his or her choice. But you're not going to profile us. You're not going to keep us from working, living, dreaming, walking, jogging, sitting in the park, going to school, buying homes. We have the right to congregate. We have the right to walk down the street, jog, sit in a park, live as citizens. And no one has the right to say otherwise. And this calling the police and running and getting guns and using police brutality when you feel like it, it is foul, and you will pay the piper eventually. And I think we're in sad times. But I knew this day was coming, that we would have an uproar. Because we, as black people, we are tired. Some of us, anyway. We are tired. I do not condone unwarranted violence, looting, burning of buildings, graffiti, but it is what it is. And just like we don't have control of those who decide to loot and burn down buildings, we don't have a choice of the white people that don't mind gunning us down as civilians and the police that exact brutality against African American people. Do your homework first before you tread out using violence against people. White America. And for the young lady that died in Louisville, Kentucky, I find it odd that you're going there, kicking down the door, and the guy you're looking for was already in custody. Don't you find that ironic? We are paying the piper still, hundreds of years later, after slavery was abolished, 1868, and we're still paying the price. We are still paying the price. So I don't want to hear anything about it's the past. It's never going to be the past until God decides to take the earth back and leave it blank, with no man or woman on it. Because there's always going to be somebody that's going to have a problem with a black man, a black woman. We will always have racism. But what you will not do is knee us to the back, knee us to the neck, shoot us for no reason, and think we ain't going to come back swinging. This is Everyday Shenanigans. Thanks for joining me. Bye-bye.